Welcome to the 2020 Hope Global Forum's annual meeting, America on Reset, Healing a Nation, Opportunity for All.
Welcome, everybody. My name is Lisa Borders, and I have the privilege of serving as a global board member for Operation Hope. But today it is both my privilege and a pleasure to welcome Kristin Groos Richmond to speak with us. I'm going to moderate a conversation between us. She is the CEO and chairman of Revolution Foods. What? You haven't heard of Revolution Foods? Well, just wait. Kristin's going to tell us all about it. Ready to join me? Let's go. Kristin, welcome. So delighted to have you with us.
Thank you so much, Lisa. It's a real honor to have this discussion with you.
Well, let's start at the beginning. What is Revolution Foods? When did it start? How did it start? How's it set up? What's the mission? What's the vision? Tell everybody.
Thank you. Revolution Foods is a company that I started with my co-founder, Kristin Toby, in 2006. We started Revolution Foods to address quality of meals served to youth across the country. We started with a vision and still have that vision to create lifelong healthy eaters. Our focus was to offer a very high quality, healthy, clean label, what we call kid-inspired, chef-crafted set of meals, first and foremost to schools and students across the nation. So we've spent our first decade plus designing, producing, and distributing healthy, delicious, just very high quality meals to about 3,000 schools throughout the US. And it's just our honor to work with the students and families we work with. Now, most of the students and families we work with are students and families who qualify for the free and reduced lunch program. And really the way I describe this is our students are relying on school meals as a primary source of nutrition in their lives. So this is not a nice to have meal or, a sort of, if I come to school with a lunch, great. If I get school lunch at school, great. This is not that. This is a primary form of nutrition for the students we serve. And we provide breakfast, lunch, snack, and supper to students across the country all year round. So even in the summertime, we're working with families and students and schools, our wonderful school partners across the country, to provide the whole suite of meal products every day, which as you can imagine, has a pretty profound impact on nutrition, has a pretty profound impact on how students are set up to learn every day, which Lisa, you mentioned, how were we created? What is our mission? Why were we created? And such a big part of Revolution Foods is driven from the mission that all students deserve a wonderful and healthy start to every day so that they can both succeed in the classroom and outside of the classroom. And that great healthy start can be an amazing lever to provide a great education for students. So we've certainly seen that in the decade plus that we've been serving students and our school partners. No one is more passionate about this than our school partners and our parents who we work with across the country, who are working so hard to provide the best opportunity for their students. So that was pre-COVID. I know we'll talk more about post-COVID, but a similar mission and vision of access to quality food for all.
Fascinating. I'm from Atlanta. I'm here in my home city. Operation Hope is headquartered here, so we love food in the South. But I recall reading about your background and your academic training in finance and accounting at Boston College, and then your MBA at UC Berkeley. So you've trained on the left and the right coast. Can
Yeah.
you tell me what got you started into Revolution Foods? I know it started in 2006 and you had done a lot of work in education before that, but bring us up to speed. Often people think a career follows a straight line trajectory, which we all know is not true. So help us understand your journey, could you?
Thank you so much. As you said, I definitely have one of those, as they say, spaghetti resumes. I actually am from Texas. I'm from San Antonio, just a wonderful city, and grew up in San Antonio. As you said, went to the East Coast for part of my education. Started my career in investment banking, which is quite different than being an entrepreneur. Creating healthy meals for schools and families across the nation. But nonetheless, just phenomenal training around working very hard, around the intense amounts of capital that we've needed to raise to build the company. Um, and just being a businesswoman altogether, and always paying attention to the financial sustainability of the company, which we'll talk more about. But started my career on Wall Street, had a pretty incredible first few years to my career, working with companies to help companies raise financing across the globe. Later went to Nairobi, Kenya, believe it or not, and had an incredible opportunity to help a group of educators from all over the world, primarily and most importantly Kenyan, but also educators from India, educators from the UK, educators from the US, really all over East Africa, come together and start the first school for children with learning differences, which was very needed in the community. And we were able to pioneer a new model in East Africa that has since, scaled in many ways. So that was an opportunity for me to kind of dip my toe in entrepreneurship, but also, and most importantly, really interact deeply with parents and students and teachers. And I had a great opportunity to teach in the second part of my rotation there, and had a firsthand look at how nutrition impacts students and their ability to learn, their ability to engage, their ability to focus, again, both in and out of the classroom. And so that incredible experience in Kenya in education really was foundational for me in deciding to come home to the US, move to the West Coast. As you said, went to get my business degree, my MBA at UC Berkeley, and met my co-founder, but spent, pretty much my entire graduate school program writing the business plan for what would become Revolution Foods. We wrote a business plan that would become a B Corp, and we can talk more about that, but a true social venture and impact focused company, and got our start there. So it was one piece of my career and building on that led me to the next, but always staying in touch, most importantly, with the consumers and families and teachers and principals who we would serve as we built the company. And I think that's been a big part of our success.
Fabulous. Well, it sounds like education was a critical piece of this, academic
Yeah.
education. But then experience, your exposure in Africa was also
Mhm.
really helpful, right? So the investment banking part of your life, it almost feels like you're picking up diamonds, if you will, and putting them in your pocket and developing skills. And then I want to talk a little bit more about Kenya because it seems that that exposure,
Mhm.
you use the word foundational, and I certainly understand and appreciate that. But I read
Mhm.
something about the Kenya Community Center that you started. Can you talk about that a little bit and how it extended not only the education piece of you being able to teach and engage with the folks that live there, but talk about, if you could, how nutrition played a part in that?
Yeah, thanks, Lisa. It really was such a pivotal moment for me. And the thing I realized is I had gone to Nairobi to really help on the business side of this model. The group of educators that was starting Kenya Community Center for Learning, or KCCL, as we like to call it, had all the sort of education expertise to do an amazing job. And they had been thinking about this model for a long time. Many of them were moms and parents in the community who had special needs children who didn't have an option for education where their children could have an individualized education plan, and the education system would really tailor their needs to the needs of the child's development. And so this group of educators and parents, like many movements, they had been passionate for years about starting KCCL. I came to help on the business side. I came to help on the fundraising side. I came to help to find a facility. I came to help to recruit people. But what I quickly realized is that a huge passion of mine was inside the classroom, and they were kind enough to let me take part in that. So it was really that, again, that combination of business and being kind of frontline with the amazing families that we served that allowed me to have that blended impact, or that blended perspective of where the need was. And part of the reality of our school is that we had children from all different socioeconomic backgrounds. We had, highly affluent students from Kenya. We had students who were struggling with food security daily. And so what I found and what I saw was that the students who were able to come to school well nourished, the students who were able to have a breakfast and a healthy breakfast, the students who were able to bring a lunch, particularly a healthy lunch, the students who knew they were going home to dinner at night. And on the weekends, were so much more set up for success than my students who were truly with their families struggling with food security. And so we ended up implementing a school meal program at the school so that every child had access to meals throughout the day and on the weekends. And it had a profound impact on performance and readiness for all students. And not surprisingly, really was that great sort of leveling of the playing field in class, because all of my students were set up to succeed and all of our students were set up to succeed. And so, it became very clear to me that this was an opportunity to dramatically improve the learning ability and potential for all students. I had an instinct, Lisa, that in the US, this was taking place at some level. Like all curious entrepreneurs, I came home. I did a ton of interviews. My co-founder and I I can't even tell you how many parents and principals we interviewed and teachers we interviewed. And sure enough, and unfortunately, this issue of quality nutrition in the US, in the education setting, was a huge need and a huge gap. It was also a huge business opportunity because there wasn't a company out there who was really doing a great job in the design and production of healthy meals that could be transported into schools.
Okay, that's just fantastic. First, let me just congratulate you on leaving your traditions and everything here in the US to go to Kenya and have the impact that you have, but to have the open heart to be willing to learn, to move from finance to facility to food and focus. That's incredible. So let's pivot back and come back to the US. You talked about business school and meeting your co-founder, Kristin, and writing the business plan. Can you talk a little bit, that term business plan, for those of us who've worked in corporate America, it's table stakes, right? But for many folks,
Right.
it's intimidating. Can you talk about a B Corp and this is a social venture? Can you explain some of that and why you decided to go that route to explore the business opportunity around nutrition and food security for schools and school children?
Thanks, Lisa. It's such a good question. As you can imagine, with a business plan to dramatically improve access to healthy food across the country, we explored multiple structures. We explored, a traditional C Corp. We explored an LLC. We even explored a nonprofit. And today we have both a B Corp and a nonprofit through Revolution Foods. But what we wanted to do was reach scale and have a great deal of impact. So today, when I tell you that we are designing, producing, and distributing somewhere between 2 to 4 million meals per week, depending on our cycle in the year, we would like to be doing that every day. So one of our goals was to have a scaled impact across the country. And we looked at how do we best do that? And our instinct was that there was a lot of great, what I'll call impact capital that was on the kind of in the market waiting to invest in a concept like Revolution Foods. I was very lucky. You talk about education and just having the privilege of this wonderful education. One of the things that was so fantastic is part of my entrepreneurship course at my MBA exposed me to a group of investors who were really cutting edge at the time, called impact investors. And I remember meeting the head of a fund. Her name's actually Nancy Fund, and her partner Mike Dorsey at the time. And they were investing money in entrepreneurs who were creating jobs in underserved communities. And so the combination of Revolution Foods providing access to healthy meals in some of our most underserved communities, but equally importantly, creating jobs in those communities.
Thank you for that. It's fascinating to recognize that it appears you were in the flow of the universe, that you met those people, you had the exposure in business school, and then met those folks who were willing to invest in the type of venture that you were going to put forth, you and Kristin. Can you talk a little bit about how you lead today? You've got this venture, it's been going since 2006, you've scaled it. What size is it today, and how do you lead that organization? What's your style of leadership with all of the colleagues that you have at Revolution Foods?
So, my style of leadership is really about leading with what I call straight talk and optimism. So, right now, as you all know, and as we're all experiencing, it's a very volatile environment out there. There's a lot of unpredictability, and folks on my team across our cities and across our communities are experiencing that. And it's an environment where we have been fortunate to continue service, to continue creating healthy meals through the pandemic, and it's absolutely critical that our team at all times knows that not only are we here to work hard, but we're also here to care for each other, and that we can have honest conversations. And so, what I like to say is leading with straight talk, so people know you're going to shoot straight, tell them what, in our case, what the company's up against, what are the trends, what are some of the opportunities we're working on, and what are the risks. And so making sure in this environment, especially, that we can be honest and transparent as leaders, but also, without hope and optimism, it's really hard to build a revolutionary systems change model. So I think a lot about, and as an entrepreneur, like many of us, I'm extremely hopeful. I'm extremely optimistic. I believe that we have a very bright future ahead, even in adversity. There is. The opportunity for optimism. And so, what I like to think about is how, as leaders and as CEOs, do we infuse straight talk with optimism? That's been really important. Another piece of my leadership, not surprisingly, given my background, is an intense focus on mission. So again, as we think about, moving through COVID and the pandemic, and really the multiple pandemics that have been going on across our communities, it's incredibly important to bring people back to the why of what we're doing. And for us at Revolution Foods, we're really fortunate because the why is about investing in our communities and making sure that we can provide access to critical nutrition, and that's only become more important in COVID times, as so many of our families struggle with food insecurity. So we always think about the fact that no matter how hard the road is, what we're doing and who we're serving brings us back to the why. And I like to talk about that. I like to get people thinking about that. But frankly, Lisa, my team does that. So I'm very fortunate. That's why people have joined Rev Foods. The other thing I'll say, just to really balance it out because it's critical, is I like to say no margin, no mission. So we have to be focused on financial sustainability and financial health, or else we can't continue to scale and drive our mission. So those are three of the things that come up for me. I think in this time, like, we need to ask people, how are you? Right? Not just how are you performing on your critical KPIs, but also how are you and how are you doing? And we talk a lot about caring for each other and about kindness being core um, a core piece of management right now in every way we can imagine.
I think that's fantastic. Straight talk punctuated with optimism and hope. I can buy that all day long. Candor with compassion. I often hear folks give even constructive criticism in not the kindest of ways. So thank you for adding that. It's really important. And we've always known no money, no mission, no margin, no mission. It's
Yep.
it's everybody understands that, but it's hard sometimes to articulate and maintain that perspective, particularly under adverse circumstances. But it would seem that Revolution Foods might have not only hit its stride, but the trajectory might be straight up during these adverse times. What can you tell us about how the business is doing? Have you all just taken off like a rocket? I mean, you were already doing well, but tell me where you are.
Yeah, thank you, Lisa. Well, not surprisingly, like the rest of our conversation, and I think most leaders today, it is not a straight line. It is a journey. So on March 15th, it was very tenuous. And, we thought to ourselves, wow, schools are shuttering. Not only is our core business venturing into a new state of no kids in buildings. And we also have families who are going to be disproportionately impacted by this pandemic. And so food insecurity is likely to rise, which it has. And we are going to have to work harder to get to the families who need us most. And so that was daunting, to say the least. Here comes the straight talk part of the equation. We got together as a team and said, what do we have to leverage that is completely differentiated and unique? And for us, it was our world-class supply chain, our product development chefs, and our ability to produce healthy food at scale all over the country, 400 cities around the country. And we thought to ourselves, okay, the game has changed. It's not going to be the same operating model, but our product and our food is going to be needed more than ever. And so that is where the team came together, fueled by mission, fueled by job creation and sustainability for our team, and fueled by keeping the business strong. And we pivoted very hard. To be able to serve the schools we serve through different community pickup feeding models. We also pivoted into the adult segment, and really proud to say, since March, we've created and distributed about 40 million healthy meals, of which 50% have been served to adults, families, particularly families who are out of work, families who might be homebound, families struggling with COVID. seniors, and in some case, homeless populations. And we've also talked to employers who are looking to provide a new benefit for their employees with affordable meals. So it's been a mosaic of a solution, but proud to say that we have, we've responded. We've responded, and we continue to respond with our core competencies and our unique capabilities.
Wow. Well, it sounds like you guys were not only agile, you were assertive too, in terms of the demand and what you could do with the resources that you had in place. 40 million meals, my goodness. Thank you to Revolution for doing that. We have about 10 minutes left, so I want to make sure we now look at the future and think about
Yeah.
how Revolution Foods will continue to be impactful in communities at risk, but perhaps for all of us. What would you tell communities that are currently or today at risk about Revolution Food and how food connects us?
Yeah. Well, so food is just an amazing connector, as we know. I mean, we have focused long and hard, not only on food access, but on culturally relevant design of food. That has been a really important part of what we do, so that we can make sure that our food not just represents healthy food, but also represents food that kids and families are going to love. So food is a huge connector, and it's a huge piece of cultural identity across the board for communities. So, right now, two of five families are with children under 12 are struggling with food insecurity. So, two of five families with children under 12 are struggling right now, and are reporting struggle with hunger, which is just it's unprecedented, that number of families struggling with hunger. So the time has never been more important right now in our nation to come together and make sure that we have a solution to feed families. I mean, so many of the folks, Lisa, who might have been on the edge, living paycheck to paycheck, many of our families are essential workers, have either, one part of the family has lost a job, both parents have lost a job, and families are struggling. And so it's a time to come together as a community. And I will say, again, optimism in the face of adversity. Some of our local leadership have just risen to amazing heights to serve the community. And as many of us have read, schools specifically have done more for feeding communities than almost anyone out there. So it's been an amazing time to work with our school leaders, but an absolutely critical time.
Wow. Well, we are just so fortunate to have had this opportunity to spend this time with you today. I am grateful on behalf of Operation Hope and, frankly, all of the students and all of us that you are helping to serve. What would you say if you were talking to anyone and talking about food insecurity, how they could help? Did not know the statistics about 2 out of 5. I had no idea. So you are educating and enlightening all of us as you speak. But if there were an opportunity for us to help in some way, all of us can't start Revolution Foods tomorrow, but how could we help in a situation like this?
Yeah, I think there are a few things. I mean, one is there are some amazing organizations doing work. So if you're part of a local community and you have children in school, and you're not part of the free and reduced lunch program, please look into that and understand how you can help other families who need access to meals through this program. There are often ways to donate. There are often ways to distribute those meals in a safe way. There are ways to sort of get the community together to support weekend meals for families, all kinds of things that have been just really game changing during COVID, but also outside of COVID. I think if you are not connected directly to schools in your community, maybe you have older kids, Maybe you have no children. One of the things that is a wonderful way to go is to look at organizations like World Central Kitchen and Jose Andres and the work that they're doing, or Red Cross, Feeding America, and donate and support those organizations. Support your local food bank. I mean, these folks are working around the clock, and they have been working around the clock since March to make sure that everyone has access to a meal. And certainly reach out to Revolution Foods. We are here to serve, as I mentioned, not just schools in the community, but also the broader adult and family and senior community, and would love to be a resource for your city and your state programs.
Thank you so much for that. As I think about all that Revolution Foods is bringing to the table, I want to thank you and Kristin, your co-founder, for the work that you all have done, the gap that you've seen in the community, and your willingness to take the initiative to step in and help fill that gap. We often think about food as sustenance, and we eat and take it for granted. And you have given us an entirely different perspective on what could be and what will be if all of us step in and help, whether it was your education, your exposure, your experience, or the expertise you have developed. We are grateful that the package has come together. So on behalf of Operation Hope, let me thank you for spending this time with us today.
Thank you so much, Lisa. Thank you for your community leadership and your leadership with Operation Hope. It's a real honor to be speaking with you today.
Take good care.
Thank you.
Thank you for attending.
I do when my love is away? Does it worry you to be alone? How do I feel at the end of the day? Are you sad cause you're on your own? I can't buy a little help from my friends. Oh, I'm gonna try a little help from my friends. There's a world where you to be alone. How do I feel at the end of the day? Are you sad cause you're on your own? I can't find a little help from my friends. Oh, I'm gonna try a little help from my friends. What do I do when my love is away? There's a world where you to be alone. How do I feel at the end of the day? Are you sad cause you're on your own? I can't find a little help from my friends. Oh, I'm gonna try a little help from my friends. What do I do when my love is away? There's a world where you to be alone. How do I feel at the end of the day? Are you sad cause you're on your own? I can't find a little help from my friends. Oh, I'm gonna try a little help from my friends. There's a world where you to be alone. How do I feel at the end of the day? Are you sad cause you're on your own? I can't find a little help from my friends. Oh, I'm gonna try a little help from my friends. What do I do when my love is away? There's a world where you to be alone. How do I feel at the end of the day? Are you sad cause you're on your own? I can't find a little help from my friends. Oh, I'm gonna try a little help from my friends. What do I do when my love is away? There's a world where you to be alone. How do I feel at the end of the day? Are you sad cause you're on your own? I can't find